from, I think, 1923 was the build date, but I'm no expert on LNR machines, I've got to admit. But, you know, he was built as an A1 originally, and then it became an A3 later when it was modified, and many other of the similar type were built by Grizzly. And the main thing I remember really, my sort of connections with this, are seeing this at York and Doncaster during my train spotting days in the late 50s and early 60s. And I'd much prefer it to be in this livery, the BR livery, than the 4472 Apple Green livery, which was, of course, before my time. Yeah. Because this is a reverser. The aim of the game of having a pedestal reverser on these locos and on the A4s as well was simply so that the driver, whilst looking at the indicator here, could also see the road ahead. Because, of course, the Grizzly only intended these to work chimney first. It never intended them to work tender first. And consequently, through that point, there's no steam heat on the front at all. The only steam heat is on the tender, because that was the only part he ever conceived would be coupled with the coaches. So the driver could go quite quickly and never take his eyes away off the road and do a first-class job. This is the brake unit here, of course, which is vital. What it does, it creates the 21 inches, and you'll see that as I'm creating the brake here now, you'll see that the duplex stage is in fact sucking the brakes off, because they're held off by vacuum. And when that reaches 21 inches, basically the train and the locomotive hold their brakes off. Now here we have the blower, which creates the artificial draft, and these two items, one is transposed opposite it, are the injector steam valves, and they're both responsible for putting water into the boiler, which is quite noisy. You can see the water gauge glasses here, and the level of water we have at the moment, and you can also see the steam pressure as well, which is just over 180 pounds there, 190 pounds on the clock. And of course, vital essential equipment, there are tea cans on the shelf here. We don't travel anywhere without plenty of tea on board.
The 7-hour was built in 1862, connecting Hartlebury in Worcestershire on the Oxford, Worcester and Wolverhampton line to Worcester and Oxford and Paddington. From Hartlebury, the line was built northwards through Bewdley, Kiley, Bridgnorth to Shrewsbury. It didn't stay very long as the Severn Valley Railway, and it was absorbed by the West Midlands Railway, which in turn was absorbed by the Great Western fairly early on. The Great Western then, of course, occupied the crease as it were until 1947 when the nationalisation came. British Rail ran the line then until closure to Bridgnorth in 1963. With the northern section closed when Bridgnorth closed completely, section from Kidderminster to Bewdley remained open for passenger traffic for a few more years. The rest of the line from Bewdley up to Kiley was kept open basically for removing coal from Alderley Colliery, which of course was still active until the late 1970s, early 1980s.
The vacuum brake is a safety device which runs continuously throughout the train. It is controlled primarily by the engine driver, but the guard has access to it at this point here. The purpose of it is a fail-safe device, such that if the train was to be separated or the engine become detached, whatever, the brakes would come on and all the parts of the train would stop. Under normal running condition, the engine has to create vacuum pressure in all the brake cylinders on the train, and with this locomotive, the Scotsman, there would be 21 inches of vacuum. Now, if for some reason I needed to stop the train in the station, or indeed between stations, by lifting this handle, I would let air into the pipes, which would gradually put the brakes on. This is primarily used to indicate to the driver that we want to stop, rather than actually stopping the train itself.
The line was ripped up with indecent haste in many ways. In fact, when the first preservationists met, Bridgnorth Station was about to be demolished in terms of removing track local buildings and so on, and it was only a very last-minute effort that a stop was put on that, as the preservationists wanted to move in. The Severn Valley never really had large locomotives working over it until preservation. Some of the bridges weren't strong enough to take heavy locomotives, and a certain amount of strengthening has taken place, particularly on Victoria Bridge. So that today we can get engines as large as Great Western King class, and also Castle class, and we've had a variety of locomotives, Northeastern Pacifics, for example, Flying Scotsman itself.
We've got a purpose-built shop to repair boilers. We try and specialise in copper firebox repairs on the boiler side, and we can do almost anything on the mechanical side, barring retiring. In the boiler shop here, we do a lot of patch repairs, or if it gets too bad, even fitting new plates in the fireboxes. We tend to specialise more in the copper work than in the steel. The basic problem with the Scotsman was the foundationing rivets. The heads on the foundationing rivets had rotted away, and that was allowing the plates to spring apart on the foundation ring. So the repair we did to Scotsman was to change the foundationing rivets to enable it to do a few more months before it comes out for its heavy general repair. To change the foundationing rivets involved having to take the boiler out of the frames, because basically you cannot change those rivets with the boiler in the frame. So we had to have it in the shop and lift the boiler out, and then burn the old rivets out, close the plates up, and ream the holes and re-rivet the ring.
How long did it take for them to dismantle the Flying Scotsman?
2 days. They started on Monday morning, finished at 8:30 last night.
How long will it take to refurbish the boiler?
Well, the work they're going to do on it will take about 7 to 10 days, they hope, and then it has to be steamed again to test it before it goes back into the frames. But the whole exercise is no more than 2 or 3 weeks. Do you want to go up onto the frames and have a look at the actual inside of the motion of the engine? Normally a part you don't see. The actual wheels on the inside is the same as the A4. Virtually everything is exactly the same as the A4. That part of it. The boiler's a little bit different in that it's fetched to an extra 30 pound of steam, so it's a bit more powerful boiler than the A4. You can fit the A4 boiler onto an A3. You can't fit an A3.
This is an LNER A4 class locomotive, designed and built by Sir Nigel Gresley, Doncaster in 1937. These locomotives were built to do Edinburgh, London, Edinburgh non-stop in the 1937, 40s, right up to 50s, 60s. In those days, 6.5 to 7 hours. In the journey, the loco would consume 10 tons of coal. There would be a crew change halfway, approximately a yard, where the fireman and driver would change over, so the the fireman would have to shovel 5 ton of coal. The local tender takes 5,000 gallons of water, but during the journey that would have to be refilled 4 or 5 times. This was done non-stop, like a scoop under the tender and water troughs in the middle of the track. Today we're preparing the engine for a British Rail inspector who comes and examines the local to make sure everything's okay before it goes on British Rail lines. Tomorrow we're running from Worcester to London. This weekend is Saturday, Sunday. The engine is booked to run from London to Peterborough. It's the 30th anniversary of the last steam-hauled express passenger train out of King's Cross. This local hauled the last one 30 years ago, and we're going back to do the anniversary again.